listen, I believe. We could introduce you just so people could have, because I don't think, Kira, you've been on before. So, and Chief Babcock has. Is there anyone else that I'm missing here? We'll do just a quick intro, but we'll follow the fun Robert's Rules love that we have. So I'm going to call this meeting to order at 5:30. And
Hey, Renee.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? Jennifer, did you pre-fill in approval of the minutes and I guess
I did
approval
just
of
on the back end, but I'll make sure it's all correct as I go through.
All right. I never
You're
seen
the
that.
only person, I think you and Councilman Villarreal, the only people on PrimeGov right now.
Okay, just wanted to.
No one wants to be on that platform. It's not fun.
You don't need to be if you don't want to, Councilor, but yeah, I have it in just so that it's faster for me to call the roll.
All right, hadn't seen it before, so just wasn't sure if I was looking at something old.
No, you're good.
PrimeGov is our platform that we use to see our meeting agendas. And the public can also access PrimeGov, but I don't know how it functions for the public. So
You muted yourself.
there we go. Can we get a roll call then, Jennifer?
Of course. Bruce Finger.
Here.
Monica Alt.
Here.
Marcela Diaz.
Here.
Naja Druva.
Here.
Mary Ann Maestas.
Here.
Mary Luz Romero Betancourt.
Here.
Rashawn Ahmad Morris.
Here.
Emily Kaltenbach.
Here.
Judge Michael Vigil.
Can you unmute again, Michael?
I am here.
Councilor Chris Rivera.
Here.
And Councilwoman, Renee Villarreal.
Thanks. Present. All right. We have a quorum. Approval of the agenda. Did anyone have any? Well, I'm used to saying, are there any changes? But there's really not much to it. So is there any, can I get a motion?
I move to approve the agenda.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay.
Sorry, who
So
was that seconded?
Councilor Rivera.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Monica Alt.
This is approving the
Approved.
agenda.
Yes, sorry. Monica Alt.
I approve.
Marcela Diaz.
Yes.
Naja Druva.
Yes.
Mary Ann Maestas.
Yes.
Mary Louise Romero Betancourt.
Yes.
Rashawn Ahmad Morris.
Yes.
Emily Kaltenbach.
Yes.
Michael Vigil.
Yes.
Bruce Finger.
Yes.
Councilor Chris Rivera.
Yes.
Councilwoman Renee Villarreal.
Yes. All right, motion is approved. Approval of minutes from December 15th. If there's no changes, can I get a motion? Anyone?
I move.
Thank you. Emily made a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Michael. Can I get a
I
roll
think
call?
that was Bruce.
Oh, sorry, Bruce.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption.
It's all good.
Okay. Marcela Diaz.
Yes.
Naja Druva.
Yes.
Mary Ann Maestas.
Yes.
Mary Louise Romero Betancourt.
Yes.
Rashawn Ahmad Morris.
Yes.
Emily Kaltenbach.
Yes.
Judge Michael Vigil.
Yes.
Bruce Finger.
Yes.
Monica Alt.
Yes.
Councilor Chris Rivera.
Yes.
Councilwoman Renee Villarreal.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, minutes approved. So just before we start for discussion and action, number 5 on our agenda, I just wanted to acknowledge who is on with us that's listening from staff. Maybe just a quick who you are and what you do at the city. And you don't need to stay on all the time. It's up to you, but it's nice to have you with us. Go ahead and Kira, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Councilwoman. I'm Kira Ochoa. I'm now the acting director for the Community Health and Safety Department.
Rich, do you want to go?
I'll go next if you want. My name's Rich Brown. I'm the Director of Community and Economic Development for the city.
Excellent. And Chief?
Hello, Happy New Year. I'm Chief Paul Babcock. I presented once, and I like to just get on the meetings to try to get an idea of where we'd like to move forward as a community. So that's why I listened in. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. Feel free to do what you need to do for our next meeting, which our meeting will likely last till 7:30. But I just wanted to wish all of you Happy New Year and great to see your faces in these small boxes on our Zoom. And just happy to have Sunshine with us and so happy to turn it over to her.
All right, thank you. It's really nice to see everyone. What a pleasure, what an esteemed group. I'm really grateful for those of you who have volunteered to participate in the task force. Kira, it's nice to see you. It's really wonderful to have Rich and the chief here as well, just showing solidarity for this work. So I'm excited and I have an agenda for us, and if it's okay with the group, I'm gonna jump right in. And we'll learn together. We'll learn about styles and expertise, and my goal is really to move the work forward and to hold a space for you all that feels really productive, really honoring of your time, yourselves, and your communities, and that gets us to where we want to go. So that in mind, I wanted to start with, may I screen share? Is that possible? Okay, awesome. I wanted to start with this. And that really is the agenda that I created for tonight. And so this is what I have for the discussion part of our agenda. Yeah, can I just get a thumbs up from anyone willing to give me feedback? Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay. Great. So I wanted to cover as much as we can tonight. And as I was preparing this really small PowerPoint, just to kind of guide my work with you all this evening, I thought it interesting that the red line sort of falls where it does. But I really wanted to start with the resolution. I wanted to get really clear on why you're all here from a personal perspective in terms of why you applied to be a part of this task force. I wanted us to talk a little bit about authentic involvement and what that means, and then go through some of the other things. I've had an opportunity to review previous minutes, to look through emails since this task force actually started back in November. I got to watch the last meeting in mid-December where there was conversation around guidelines and working groups. And so I'm gonna do my best just to kind of get deep around all of these topics. And what we don't get to today, we can decide as a group whether we want to postpone that stuff till next time. So if this agenda is reasonable to folks, I'm going to switch what's on my screen and take us right to the resolution. And I think that for this to be super high functioning and meaningful in the ways that I'm hoping it can and will be over time, I really ask you all to participate, jump in. You can jump in with your voice. I'm a trained facilitator, so I know how to sort of manage that. You can jump in with a hand raise. I don't know, do folks have access to the reactions that we normally do in Zoom on your screens? No. All right, so because I can't watch all of your faces at once, I really am depending on you all to use your voices and to help me steer this ship. So let me stop the share briefly and go to the resolution. And then reshare. So for this, before I reshare, I'm gonna ask for volunteers to read. And the way that it is it starts with a resolution, whereas. So there are 5 whereases. And then there are about 8 points in terms of tasks to be completed. So look for me to ask for volunteers, and you don't have to show me your hand. You can just sort of take it. So let me screen share it. And the reason I'm doing this is because I really want us to be grounded in the work and the reasons that you joined and the intentions of the city when this resolution was passed. And I know that the last couple of sessions have been about getting accustomed to the process and the group and how these meetings will be run and getting some background information from some of our experts who serve and work in our communities. But I want us to reroute in the resolution itself and then in the reasons why each of you has chosen to be here. So I'm screen sharing again. I think all of you can see it. Remember, speaking up is like incredible. And if someone will read the first whereas, I'd be grateful.
Whereas the city of Santa Fe City recognizes a national movement that is taking place across the country, calling for communities to assess, improve, and reimagine ways in which social justice, law enforcement, and community health and safety must come together on behalf of all people. And
Whereas the city police department, SFPD, fire department, SFFD, community service department, and emergency management department all contribute to the city's mission of community health and safety.
Take it, someone.
Whereas the city has developed certain community programs, such as the Mobile Integrated Health Office, or MIHO, Thrive, formerly known as the LEAD, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program, and most recently Connect, that are examples of innovative ways the city can improve the lives of the community through collaboration, cross-departmental community service, and more appropriate and effective types of responsiveness to various kinds of calls for help or assistance, and at the same time represent important and useful building blocks for additional innovative approaches. And
Whereas the city's residents and leadership are in broad agreement about the need for thoughtful and inclusive self-examination of the ways in which traditional approaches towards public safety have been provided, acknowledging the call for racial and social justice, recognizing the historical injustices that have too often led to violence and inequities in the communities of color, and
whereas the city of Santa Fe seeks to continuously improve its provision of services and evolve its practices to best ensure equitable treatment of community members and community health-driven practices of public safety. So why don't we take a pause for the cause and I'd love to hear what stood out for folks. What terms, what did you hear? What did you connect with?
I would say historical injustices on communities of color. And like the city of Santa Fe taking on the national call.
Thanks, Marianne. How about other folks?
The part about looking at the traditional ways that we have delivered public health and safety, and looking at alternative ways to provide that health and safety.
Thanks, Michael. What else?
I would add that the terms reimagine stood out, and also innovation, and the ability that we have a history of innovation in this city already.
Thanks, Emily. Other folks?
Actually didn't connect too much to it. It sounded like a bunch of words that people say. It kind of went, I didn't really land and connect on any of the words, honestly.
Fair enough. Anybody else? We've got historical context. We've got Santa Fe stepping up to the national call. We've got being innovative. We've got looking at new practices in case the historical practices aren't working anymore. I think we heard racial equity. Anything else stand out to folks? Fair enough. So what I want us to do next is really take a little bit of time this evening to think about and express why you're here. Right? You're not here for Robert's rules. You're not here because you don't have something else to do on a Tuesday night. You're not here just to socialize with this esteemed group. You're here because whether it was in the resolution or not, something is driving you to this call to see Santa Fe become a better, safer, more equitable place. So what I'd like to do is just give everybody about a minute, and you can mute your camera if you like or not, just to really get centered in your body, in your thoughts about why you're here. And when I say here, I don't just mean here tonight, but I mean here lending your time, a minimum of 6 months, to this task force. And if any of this is redundant, bear with me. Some of the greatest things are. That's how we get our recipes perfected. That's how it tastes like our grandma's soup or stew or cake or cookies. The redundance isn't an inherently bad thing if we're cooking something good and nourishing for ourselves and the people we care about. And that really is what this task force can be if we choose to show up fully and create a process that allows it to be that way. So members of the task force and co-chairs, just take a minute, camera muted or not, and really settle your mind and your body to get clear on why you're here. Because I'm gonna ask us to have a discussion about it, and I'm gonna take notes on this brainstorm. So I'm gonna give you about, I wish I had some jazz or something fun to play in the background. I'll have that next time. But in the meantime, just go inside and get clear. You can take a couple notes if you want, or you can just allow the words and the sentiment to settle in your own minds. And this will be a full share for the group. And then just all coming back and let's have an effective, like a participatory brainstorm. We know what the resolution says in terms of why this group. But why you? Why are you here? And I don't have to popcorn it because that can get a little awkward. I'll just call names. Mary Ann.
Thank you. Wasn't expecting to go first. But I would say like a couple of reasons why I'm here. Just like seeing things that don't work in the systems that our country have set up, whether it's with like types of government, the way that we think about public safety and police departments in this country and the origins of those institutions. And also, there are some personal connections. I have a personal connection with some of the youth violence that happened over the summer. And it's really hard on me and my family. But then like seeing the response from the city was very disheartening. And the response from the Santa Fe Police Department on how to respond to that situation that was happening over the summer. And just like wanting to be more of a resource in my community and be able to share, whatever comes out of this task force, or being able to like input things from the community, like for like whatever the product of this task force is.
Mary Ann, how do you define your community?
That's a good question. I was born and raised in Santa Fe, and I've mostly lived on the south side of Santa Fe. So I'd generally consider the south side my community, and particularly like my Hispanic and immigrant neighbors and Indigenous neighbors.
Perfect, thank you. Thanks for going first. Rashawn, you're under Mary Ann on my screen, so I'm going to call on you next.
Okay. I'm here because like my earliest memory was of my dad getting beat up by the police. I've been arrested and released multiple times and pulled over. I have 2 teenage sons that live and go to school in this city. Yeah, it's just like Mary Ann said, it just doesn't work. And so I feel like there's a tradition amongst Black folks to kind of, you did a bunch, now I'm gonna do something, and even though like my thoughts of how the system can be fixed or transformed, I'm not really sure how that can really happen. I'm still here for the effort, and I love this city. I'm not from here, but I love it here, and I try to be an active member of any community that I live in. That's the culture that I come from, is being active in the community. And so, yeah, I just want to try to make better with where I am for myself, for my kids, for future generations.
Thanks, Rashawn. Have you been pulled over in Santa Fe?
Yeah.
Thank you. And how do you define your community?
I don't know. I'm kind of going back and forth with that one, just because living here has really not being from here is a thing, and so it's hard to kind of feel in community here because I'm not from here, and I've been told that a bunch. So instinctively, it's just the people around me, the people in the city, from my folks who don't have much to my folks who have a whole lot, to people who we live around and have to interact with day to day.
Thank you. Monica, why are you here?
There's a lot of reasons why I'm here, both personal and professionally. And I would say professionally, I've dealt with law enforcement a lot, both primarily in the courtroom, and both working collaboratively sometimes with law enforcement. With my time before I became a criminal defense attorney, trying to train law enforcement to do different types of policing. And then later as a criminal defense attorney in a very adversarial place. And having that experience of watching them work and watching them work very closely sometimes was a good experience, but a lot of the time was pretty frustrating. And so I come here to try and reimagine how we can come up with creative solutions to a really difficult problem, and that problem being, excessive force or constitutional violations, nepotism within the department, the issue with the union and union contracts, how that plays in with law enforcement. But there's so many different things we could tackle. And I find myself sort of constantly thinking about all the different ways and all of the work that needs to be done in order to sort of make the police department better, but also sort of try and heal some of the trauma that's happened. And I think it's a tall order for this task force to tackle all of those things. So I appreciate being here with so many people from different perspectives to try and figure out how we're going to do that, how we're going to tackle some of this. And also looking at the fire department and sort of behavioral health and how we can marry some of these things or reimagine people's roles. So it's something that we think about a lot. So professionally, that's where I come from. On a personal note, I'm a Northern New Mexican, and I've had some good interactions with law enforcement over the course of my life, and I've had some bad ones. And I have friends and family that have both gone to jail and prison, both state prison and federal prison, and watching how that can really rip families apart. And really reimagining what we mean when we say public safety, and making sure that when we say public safety, we're talking about everybody, not just certain groups. So I'm really interested in expanding that, or really thinking about what that definition is of public safety. Like, what do we mean when we say that? Because I think, unfortunately, public safety means different things to different people. And the way we apply that is different. And also when we talk about like breaking the law, certain people breaking the law, I always like to bring up that, we all break the law. All of us do, especially law enforcement, actually, because that's, they have constitutional violations. But we only look at certain people and the way in which they break the law. And I don't like that. I think that we should have more of a community, a way of looking at breaking the law as a community thing, that we're all going to do it. It's just, what is our response to that? So I come here from a variety of different places, but I'm certainly happy and humbled to be here, but also the weight of this is pretty heavy. And the weight that we all have to do this in a very public way is challenging.
Fair enough, thank you. Do you want to say how you define community? It's interesting, just in terms of us getting sort of like a picture, a scope, right? Of when we're tasked with this, who and what all are we touching? as a group?
Yeah, that's a hard question. I mean, when I say my community, which I say I think a lot, especially in my work, you know, I think that sometimes I can be very limiting in the way I look at what I mean when I say community. And I try to be I'm not being very thoughtful when I'm doing that. I'm thinking about my sort of tight community, right? My mother and my family from Las Vegas, New Mexico, and Velarde, like that's my community, my friends and chosen family. But I'm trying to expand that for sure, and be more expansive if that's what I'm hoping and wanting from others, is that we want to expand that sense so that we can all do this together.
Perfect, thank you. Mary Louise.
Hi, thank you so much for being here and for being so open and helping us to have these conversations. I want to say that first. I'm humbled to be here, but I'm here for a lot of reasons. One reason is I have a son who's Black, and I was that person that he could come to talk about the things that got in the way of others being at their best, as well as the way we responded to those people and ourselves when we're not at our best. The other hat that I wear is I do restorative justice for the Santa Fe Public Schools. We've had a lot of youth death. I reached out to the South Side, and I want to thank Chris for coming. We did a mural project for the youth that have passed away, that we've lost. And it was very healing for them to have an opportunity to be recognized and seen as a result of feeling that nobody cared about what happened to them. And so just knowing that I partnered with Gerard's House, and I partnered with a local artist who's incredible. And I know nothing about art, but I know how to connect with people. And my former job was working with juvenile probation. I had the opportunity to serve my community. And maybe I'm going to answer this too early, but my community is the homeless guy down the street, the homeless woman at the shelter, the person that lives next door to me, someone that I see at the store. Today, it's everybody that's in this meeting. I believe that we as a community are, I'm hoping that we are working to create the best version of ourselves so that we can serve that community. And I think oftentimes people don't know how to separate people from behavior. And so they see bad as a bad without recognizing the trauma and everything that comes with that. And so in the work that I do with restorative justice, I try to separate the person from the behavior so that we can help them get from where they are to where they need to be. And that requires us to be willing to forgive and to recognize our wrongs rather than to blame and shame and be victims of our lives. And so I love restorative justice because that platform allows a safe space to share the gift of listening from a deeper place. I have the honor of serving my community in allowing that to happen, and for us to not point the finger all the time, but to recognize, what did I do that wasn't at my best when I participated in that? And so I know that people have listened to me since, because we haven't got to have this conversation. And I just want to say that I believe in people. I believe that we're all FHBs, fallible human beings, and everyone makes mistakes. And just like Monica, I think, was speaking before me, she talked about we all break the law, right? But when we can accept responsibility for not being at our best and recognizing what we could do to make that right, that's what community means, so that we can heal together and to recognize that that we're not perfect, and it's okay not to be perfect. But I don't believe in the judgments that are placed on just a department. I really believe that the only way people can change is that when they're willing to update their behavior and recognize what isn't me at my best, then I can be better. And we have to be able to have those conversations so that healing can begin. And so I want to be here because I want to be part of the solution. I want to share the gift of listening. I want to recognize that I'm a fallible human being just like everybody else. And I just really honor the opportunity to share that. So thank you.
Thank you too, and thank you for blending in how you define community in your answer. Show of hands on the screen, how many people are familiar with restorative justice, not as a term, but as a process? Show of hands. Great, so those who aren't, I think it's be a wonderful opportunity as we just explore how this is going to work and advance our framework, our equity framework, our healing, our imagining, and potentially reform framework, to just keep that as a possibility. It's a good tool to know about. And in some places it's helping to change the criminal justice system, and in particular to keep youth of color out of the incarceration process. So I think it's a great tool. You know, some of the things I've also heard are like, how do we heal the trauma? And this diversity of community, right? That there's language diversity, there's status diversity, there's proximity diversity, there's economic diversity. So these are some of the things I'm picking up. Occasionally I'm gonna look down and type notes into my phone because I wanna bring this all back to you all as again, sort of soil that we can root in. So Marcella, are you okay going next?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Wonderful to hear again from folks why they're here and what they want to offer to this table. I think primarily I spend my time on these Zoom calls and in conversation because I think a lot of the policies and institutions that have been promulgated under the guise of public safety have been actually very destructive to our communities. And have not made us safer and have not made us feel more connected and have not made our communities feel more cohesive. And so I think that any opportunity that we have that has sort of been propelled by these moments in our history that give us an opportunity to re-examine our traditional approaches to public safety and to think about new ways of making all of our policies and institutions have that in mind, right? That cohesiveness and that community connectedness where we all feel like we belong, like we feel safe, like we can thrive in our communities is so important. And so this is one such opportunity that a lot of people in our communities, not just in Santa Fe, but really across the country, helped instigate and helped propel. And so if I can lend anything to that effort, I will. So there's that. But I don't actually represent myself. Most folks on this call already know, and those who may know me in the community, that I work as a part of a statewide immigrant-based racial justice and worker justice organization that has done a lot of policy work. And in fact, in the last 25 years have worked with state officials as well as city officials, not just in Santa Fe, but around the state, to pass policies, procedures, bias-based policing, prohibitions. What does that look like in policy with law enforcement? Have worked with community government officials and in some cases law enforcement. And what I know about a lot of that work, and a lot of that really from our perspectives in immigrant-based organizations, Somos un Pueblo Unido, we're a united people is the translation of that, is that you know, we have a mixed immigrant status community that gets, you know, much like many other communities, it's something that we have in common, that that gets treated differently because of where we're from and because of a particular status. And so the kinds of policies that we have been working to overturn and to really work through and change have resulted, luckily, in people not getting deported and being separated from their families and being taken away from the communities that we now call home. And so that's sort of my background on the policy piece. But I also know that that's not transformative, right? That's working within a framework that is not necessarily leading to re-examination of the traditional approaches to public safety in general. And so again, many have worked very hard for this particular moment and opportunity. And so if we can reimagine, re-examine, create new ways of thinking about taking more, community health driven approaches to public safety, I think that we will all be better for it, and we will help to start diminish some of those policies and institutions that have really been so destructive to so many families and communities. All of that being said, I truly believe and hope to keep, not alone, because many of us are doing that. I never am at these tables representing myself and only myself. It's not the way I think organizing works. And so for me, the most important thing is that we continue to create ways for people most impacted negatively by the current state of affairs, be at the table through lots of different ways. And I really welcome and am excited, hopefully, about a real community process through which that hopefully you can help us lead, Sunshine, that really, really helps people who are most impacted come to the fore in organized and in unorganized ways. I like organized ways so that we're sort of all coming forward and really putting our best. The people who can change these policies are the people in our communities that are most impacted by them. I truly believe that. And so I want to bring that and keep pushing for that in any committee that I'm on. That's what I'm going to do. And then I also just personally have also been a restorative justice facilitator with young people and finding sort of ways to divert young people of color from the traditional criminal justice system. And even though that has been just personally a very incredible, that's just been an incredible set of experiences for me to be able to do that and to really to help young people through that process. And as you mentioned in your description of restorative justice, to be able to divert and create alternatives to that traditional criminal justice approach. What I know is that just working in sort of these circles and in these restorative justice and one-on-one isn't going to create the big change that we want. We really need to help inform and whole communities, including law enforcement, including government, including people in our community. What are different ways to approach, crime? What are different ways to approach public safety through restorative justice and transformative justice approaches? I don't think it can just be about youth. I think we have to open up these programs to adults in our communities as well. Because again, what is the big difference between a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old, other than a law that says this person gets this kind of impact and this other person gets this kind of impact. So those are sort of all the different ways that I'm thinking about why I want to be here and to help in the facilitation of that process.
Beautiful.
That was a lot. I'm sorry.
This is our soil, right? So y'all know if you plant something and there's not enough dirt, there's no way it'll grow. So I think tonight is the night to really pour it out, and we get to be meaningfully engaged in this process. This can't be just another Zoom meeting. And over time, the depth of connection to one another, to the work, to the various aspects of the work, and to this broadening, even as we sit here tonight, this broadening of the definition of community, that's what we're going for. So I don't think it can be too much tonight. I got a sense when you were talking of how you define your community. Do you want to give us a concise statement about how you define your community?
I define my community in different ways, like many others. Certainly, the work has been in the immigrant justice movement because I come from a big mixed immigrant status family, and that is the community with whom I continually have worked in the last 25 years here in Santa Fe. But certainly my community is larger than that. It's a social justice community, people who are dedicated from our community, people of color, young people who are really dedicated to creating that more cohesive, more connected, more resilient community of support.
Thank you. So, as I listen, hopefully people are able to stay tuned in. Just really quickly, I want to say that part of the way I stay tuned in is I drink water during meetings. A lot of times I eat during meetings because I'm facilitating and I'm on Zoom and it's live stream. I'm not going to eat, but catch me in a room where I'm doing this and I've got a granola bar or whatever I need to stay present. So hopefully you all are figuring out or already have strategies for staying present. If you find yourself sort of drifting in and out of presence to what other folks are saying, or even to your own feelings, I just want you to notice that, because over time together and in this work, we're going to figure out how to keep you here. Does that make sense to everybody? Kind of do this if it makes sense. Yeah, staying present is hard. And it's not just about Zoom. It's just about being human. And then sometimes these conversations can actually be re-traumatizing and frustrating, depending who you are and how you're coming to the table. So I want to really acknowledge that and thank you all for trying. This is not an intellectual exercise. This is really hard work. It's hard to show up. It's hard to show up, especially when you have experiences or your family or community for generations has experiences that says this type of setting might not work. This type of conversation might not change things. And again, that has nothing to do with Zoom and everything to do with how we navigate our own historical trauma. Naja, do you want to let us know why you're here?
Yeah, I find myself asking that question. Wait, what am I doing? In a good way. So I talked last week about this moment where we have George Floyd's murder, and there's this rage that we kind of see expressed. And for me, that was over the news, right? We didn't really have that kind of response locally. And so really recognizing in myself like rage, right? And I'm a therapist, and we talk a lot about anger being the guardian of fear, right? And so quick story, today I had a conversation with my mother. They're both my parents are from New York. I grew up here in Santa Fe. I have a conversation with my mother that the cover to their ceiling light is no longer working, and so they need a replacement. So she unscrews it and takes it down because they're going to take it to Lowe's, and it's dusty and it's got dead moths in it. And she goes to wash it, and my father says, don't wash it, because we need to be able to prove that we're not stealing it, right? We're going to go into Lowe's, and if it's dirty, then they can't say, oh, you're trying to leave with two or something. And it seems like this little thing, but hang up the phone and I'm angry. And what my mother has said to me is, I didn't wash the lampshade because I didn't want your father to get shot. Right? Some kind of shoplifting story escalates, the police come. This is a 70-year-old Black man with 2 PhDs. He was chairman of the psychology department of the College of Santa Fe for years, right? And he's worried, he's taking these actions, like not wash it, and why is that? And I have a son, and he's little, he's 5, but he's gonna grow up and make good and bad decisions in the world. And I'm worried, I'm scared for him. I'm scared for my father. I'm scared for kids I don't know and adults I don't know. And so what to do with this expression of anger and fear, and I'm not a sign holding Molotov cocktail style person. So, okay, there's this opportunity. Maybe we address it within the system. And like, okay, let me be part of that movement, right? But I really hear, I think it was Monica who said that, like, I feel the weight of this. I feel, yeah, the weight feels like an accurate description of the work we're trying to do here. Did that even answer a question?
It was great. I mean, thanks for the quick story, right? I think that part of being community is feeling each other and not like over intellectualizing or othering one another, right? So it's really important for this group to, one, experience safety, which gets created over time in this space, because you're tasked with helping to reform or reimagine public safety, right? So we're just like a mirror to the larger situation. And sometimes it may feel or be a shame to have to do this in this format, so publicly streamed, et cetera. But the truth is, the very things that we're trying to reimagine, rebuild, create, or that you are, and I'm trying to help, or will continue to work to help, they're up against the same thing, right? This public gaze, personal and community trauma, the danger of being seen and or perceived or misperceived. And that takes us right to your dad and your mom's story. So everybody's showing up so fully tonight. I really, really, really want to thank you for that. And again, take the time to notice yourself. Naja, did you want to say anything about how you currently define community?
I think I spent my career working in behavioral health with marginalized people. And so really identifying and intentionally using my privilege to help where I can. And I also, part of the weight of being in this task force is I do feel like my community is the Black community, however small, in Santa Fe and New Mexico and the country and the world, you know, but this is an opportunity to advocate for us.
Yeah, so if it's heavy, I can promise you that there are going to be moments where it's light. And I can't tell you why, but I'll try to help us all notice those moments and possibly glean some things from them. But everything has two sides, right? Everything has at least two sides. So if it's heavy, you can trust that there will be points in this process where it's light. And light may be the just relief or excitement that we've got something, or we've hit someplace, or there's a deeper connection, or the right people. And when I say right, the people who are usually not at these tables show up, or somebody gets it who never got it before. We're gonna have light moments. As we complete this particular task, and then we're actually gonna take a 5-minute break. We call those bio breaks in the world of online facilitation. But we're gonna complete this particular process with those who haven't gone yet. And one thing I'm gonna ask is that we all just like take a breath before we go forward. And remember that for many people who may be listening, and certainly the people who are serving on this task force, again, this process can be re-traumatizing. It is not an intellectual exercise. So that's how we show kindness for each other. And it's one way that we build community with one another. Michael, would you be willing to go next?
Well, I wanted to be on this committee because I've spent pretty much all of my professional life, which is about almost 40 years, working in the justice system, both as a lawyer and then later as a judge, and even as a young person, a youngster actually, growing up on the east side of Santa Fe. I had experiences with police and with people who were involved in the system, and was quite frustrated as a kid watching what was happening to some of the people, my neighbors, some of the people who lived around us in their interactions with police. But mostly it has to deal with how I have worked in the justice system with police, both representing police, suing police, being a judge for 18 years, dealing with police in all areas, criminal, adult criminal, juvenile, neglect and abuse, whatever. And the key word for me is the word justice. I think we've gotten away from the idea that citizens, their first encounter with the justice system, in particular the criminal justice system, is the police officer that stops them. And I think that in my experience, there needs to be a change in how police officers see themselves in the community. Not as enforcers, but I think too much emphasis in training and is enforcement. And really what should be emphasized is justice, that they are there not to try to catch somebody necessarily. Maybe you pull someone over for a broken headlight and you're looking for ways to search their car. You're looking for ways to do something that isn't called for. You have no reason to search a person's car. That's just an example, or the initial confrontation. Anyway, what I'm talking about is I think that we need to emphasize that law enforcement should be a secondary tool in their training. They should be taught about justice. One of the things that I was always so surprised, and there are, you have to remember there are different, every policeman is different, and there are very good police officers that I have dealt with, and there are some very bad police officers that I've dealt with. But what's surprising with some of the ones that was their lack of understanding of the Constitution and what the Constitution means, and that it's their job to enforce the Constitution. It's their job to make sure people are treated fairly and that people are, their rights are respected. And a lot of times that would not happen or did not happen. And so I want to try to be involved in this situation to find a way that we can change how a police officer approaches his job. Yes, law enforcement is a big part of what they have to do, but justice is just as important with what they have to do. And so, you know, there has been progress over the years. We've had different programs or different changes, and there's more changes going on every day that have been improvements. But I think that there's still this core problem with the way some officers approach their job, and it results in confrontation. It results in escalation, etc. So I think that the experiences I've had, both as a lawyer and a judge, would be helpful to this group in trying to work out a situation where we can change that dynamic of the police. My community has changed over the years. I grew up on the east side of Santa Fe when it was predominantly Hispanic and poor. And over the years, there's hardly anyone there anymore. It's turned into a very affluent community. So my community changed as I became a lawyer and as I became a judge. My community expanded. It really involves the whole community, because I have empathy for the people who've been victims of burglary, and they come in and they've been violated. Their safety has been violated, or people who have been killed in a DWI accident. And they're from all over the city. So I have empathy for all of them. And I don't feel like I think that's my community, because that's been my life. I've dealt with all segments of our city. But you know, it's also very frustrating after 40 years, even though there's been some successes. It's very frustrating that we still have situations that don't need to end up the way they end up. So that's why I want to participate and hopefully offer some ideas on how we can proceed.
Michael, thanks. And a lot of things that folks are saying stood out just from what Michael shared, just this whole notion of like, what does the stop have to look like? What is the role of an officer in the stop? And what can they communicate in that stop that does no harm? So thank you so much. We're at 6:34. We are going to take a 5-minute break. I'd like to hear from Emily and Bruce before we do that. Can folks sit for another 5 minutes and listen before we take a break? Okay, great. So Emily, if you will tell us why you're here and how you are currently defining your community.
Well, good evening, and sometimes exciting to meet you and have this space. So I guess, as Monica said, sort of both from a personal and a professional perspective, I feel like those two, my personal and professional lives, I feel like are so intertwined around these issues. But, you know, I grew up south of Santa Fe, in very rural, out by Cerrillos and Madrid. And so, you know, that in and of itself was really interesting to see, you know, how sort of the inequities around sort of living in a rural community that had this urban center as its home. And so I guess I'll answer this question about community as I talk, but you know, I still see that as my community. But I went to school here, and I feel so connected to the people that I went to school with from elementary school to high school who are still so, and like so many people are really building their lives and their families here. And so, you know, that's part of the community. I'm raising a daughter here. And so I feel like her school community and those families and those teachers are really important because we know that, you know, so many of our systems, there are so many inequities in our systems. So it's not just about policing to me. Yeah, professionally, I come from a public health background. And so I really feel like public health is public safety and public safety is public health. And so, but there are also problems in a public health system, whether that's looking at inequities in schools and inequities in the healthcare system, inequities in our criminal justice system. They've just been present throughout my personal and professional life. When I was a kid, my parents were teachers at the state pen, and I would go with them like for family days, and I never could understand. Like, I remember that being a really pivotal point in my life of like, why are we putting people in cages here? What are their background? It was really hard for a kid to understand. It was right around the riots. It was right after the riots there. And so I think that really shaped a lot of the work I'm doing today. I feel deeply about system reform, and I feel like we can reimagine. I don't think it's about necessarily little baby steps there. I think we can set a vision at the same time being very pragmatic and realistic of how to get there. And so, you know, I'm here because I'm hoping that we can do some of that reimagining. I think we need to figure out ways to reduce law enforcement interaction with communities. Like, that should be a goal. Like, I'm angry that we're making criminals out of people for just surviving. And that's not about people necessarily, that's about a system. Like, there's just so, you know, the racism and the inequities that are built into systems. Like, I hope we start thinking about how we can reimagine those systems, because even if we improve training or we improve behaviors, we're not improving a system that's rooted, that's, you know, deeply flawed. And I really believe in the power of local government, actually, like the power of local communities in order to do that. And so that's exciting. I think on a level that the city can be, you know, and what I pointed out earlier in the resolution is there are comments about sort of what innovative things have already happened. Like, and that people who live in this community need to be helping shaping the policy. You know, I work for an organization that does drug policy reform, in which we're trying to, reform our archaic drug policies that fall on people of color most acutely, right? Of who's being criminalized. But you know, I think Marcella, you said it really well. That's not enough. Just changing these policies, we also have to dig a little deeper. And I think we need to ask our community, like, what makes them feel safe, and like, what are we fearful of? Because, you know, I know there's a lot of conversation about, like, do we defund police or do we reinvest? I think it's really about a question of what makes us feel safe and what is that definition of public safety, and building it from there. So I don't know, that was a little bit all over the place, but I love this community and our community and our individual communities. And so I'm very privileged to be here, and I'm looking forward to the hard work. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Emily. Nice to get to meet you. Bruce, you're going to wrap us up before our break. So why are you here, and how do you define community? currently. And you all changed my thinking already because I added currently, right? When I started, I was saying, how do you define community? I think Marianne started, but now it's like, oh, this is going to evolve. And that's part of this work, not just for us personally, or not just for this task force, but the whole thing. In order to, I think it was Monica or Marianne who said it early on, we want everyone to be treated the same as part of a valued and safe and welcome community. So if we're going to get there, it's how we define community, how law enforcement, how all public safety people, persons define community is going to have to evolve. Bruce.
Okay. I have one person to thank for allowing me to be on this committee. It's Councilman Rivera. I'm not from Santa Fe. I'm from Chicago. And I lived there most of my life. And I moved in, my wife and I purchased a home here in Santa Fe on the south side. We live very close to the South Side Library. And I live in a community that has an HOA. So the second HOA meeting I went to, I was voted in as the president without any say. So that's how I got involved in my small community and still active in it. I recognized that there was a group that was being formed. It's called the Southwest Santa Fe Advocates. It's a group of people here on the south side that meet once a month with the councilmen and different officials of the city, including the mayor came to one of our meetings. And that's where I met Councilman Rivera. And so I slowly got involved in a lot of community activities. With that said, my goal was to bring my expertise in law enforcement to this task force to give a perspective of what it was like to be a law enforcement officer. And I was not an officer with a municipality or a state agency. I worked for a railroad, so I worked for a private agency, but my job was to protect the employees, primarily employees, safety of the passengers and people that visited the railroad, and then protecting the property that we were consigned to move. But I worked on the west side of Chicago in some of the most high crime areas in the city. And so I did see a lot. Thankfully, I got into the training mode. So my expertise in law enforcement is based around training. And I was involved in training as a frontline instructor. And in my last 7 years, I was the training director. So I had to relocate to Omaha, Nebraska, which was a lot different than Chicago. But I got involved in the formulation of policies for use of force, the formation of policies for training and safety of the officers and safety of the people we were bound to protect, you know. And so when I started talking to Councilman Rivera, I found out this task force was being formed, and I thought that hopefully I can bring some perspective to the task force of what goes into being, even though I wasn't a municipal police officer. Real quick story though, when I was going through school, I was taking courses at Western Illinois University, and the more courses I took, the more I looked at policing as not, a lot of the functions they were being given weren't really police functions. They were functions that should be handled by more the medical, like domestic violence issues and just, you know, gang issues, stuff like that. So that's why I went to the private sector. So I'm looking forward to helping with this task force and hopefully giving a little bit of insight into what's involved in training and what the police function should be. And just to let you know, I have been pulled over a couple times, and every time I was pulled over, it was for a traffic issue. I crossed the solid white line, and that's not permitted. But the officers that I dealt with were totally professional. I got pulled over by a state trooper because my license plate was it wasn't registered with the motor vehicle division properly, and I had the registration in the car, so the state troopers, checked it out and it was all good. And being just retired from law enforcement, I'm watching all of her, what she was doing as a safety issue. And I just like, okay, I live in a state that's got a lot of good professionals. And so I'm happy to be here. We're happy to live in Santa Fe. We love the community, and hopefully I'll be able to participate and be able to give some help and some insight. So thank you for the time.
Thanks, Bruce. So I have us at 6:47. We're going to do a 5-minute break. So if you could come back ready to work by, I don't know, 6:52-ish, 53-ish. We'll be flexible. Feel free to mute your camera, get up, stretch, go to the bathroom, eat something. Thanks you guys for a good start, good deep dive. So if you can hear my voice and you're not back yet, it's okay. It's amazing to me how quickly 5 minutes passes. It's really too fast. But just slowly coming back. Thanks everybody for a really strong start. And have some really great stuff to work with that's gonna probably show up more in our next meeting, as this is just part one of sort of orienting, getting grounded, getting rooted, and reconnecting to the work, not just the process. So I see about half of us back. When you're really back, show your face. And again, there's no rush. I'm gonna screen share again. Take us to the agenda that I had for tonight. And try to also show my face. So before we move on in terms of the agenda, does anyone want to share anything? I want to acknowledge that I did not have our co-chairs share why they're here. And I think that that's important, and I want to give them a chance to do that. I'm kind of hoping we can do that towards the close. So Chris and Renee, if that's okay with you, can part of our closeout be you all sharing why you're here and how you define community?
That's fine with me.
Fine with me. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. So I will work to keep excellent time, and that'll be part of how we close. And thank you for your leadership. Anything else before we move on with the agenda? Any comments from our chairs or committee members? Okay, so I'm going to take that as a no. It's hard to see you all while I'm screen sharing. Let me see if that changes it. Not so much. All right, so let me ask you this. On a scale of 1 to 5, and you'll have to use your hand, give me your energy level in fingers, and everybody hold it up and just give me enough time to scroll through pictures. So no hand being like, I got to go, to, 5 being like, woo, I'm feeling, good about this moment. And be honest, because honesty is a really important part of our process. So on a scale of 1 to 5, showing your hand, hold it up for a minute. Okay, I've got a 5, I've got a 4, I've got a 3, I've got a 3, I've got a 2. I love it. I've got a, Rashawn, are you a 3? Okay, great. I don't have, there are just a couple people. All right, great. So we're somewhere between 2 and 5. I think that's really reasonable. We've got just 30 minutes left. We're gonna do another exercise, but we're gonna, it won't be as long. So here's our second exercise for this evening. And that is, it's a writing exercise. So I wanna give folks a chance to get a pen and a paper. And we're just gonna share, it won't be stories. We're just gonna share to these questions. And I should have typed them out, so I apologize. Maybe I can still type them out. Let me see if I can do that. Yay, all right. Voila. Well, I guess let's start with this one. Safety to me and my community is. So if you just write that out, give me 3 points if you have them. If you don't, have 3. Just give me what you got. Don't go over 3 because we're going to be mindful of time and energy levels. So there are 3 prompts now. And if you'd write them down, don't give me more than 3 per prompt. 1 per prompt is fine. We're going to share. And I see folks writing, so there's no rush. These are simple prompts, and they're just sort of a starting place. They're obviously not the end all be all. You know, people mentioned being here on this task force because they have children. They have children of color. They have Black children in particular. They work with immigrant communities. But we also heard people talk about parents, elders, right? Like 70-year-olds feeling unsafe in the public. So this is broad. And it doesn't go away with age or status, these inequities and these dangers. Are most of you on number 3? Yeah. I see a smile that says, maybe not. A lot of stuff has come up as well for me listening to you all, and there will be a format for me to sort of give you back a lot of what I heard and key words and what's been repeated and opportunities for avenues for where to go next. And we'll do that at the start of next meeting because I won't have time to pull that all together to show you before we close tonight, but starting to see some inroads to the work and towards the guidelines that I know this task force would like to establish. So I'm going to stop screen sharing, assuming that everyone is at least on number 3. And also so that I can do some typing while you all share. I'm muting my camera so I can type and not look weird. And we can popcorn. If you feel like you don't have anything, you don't have to share all three. Just let me know which one you're starting with, and I'm gonna be over here typing in sort of the elements of the words. So who'd like to go first?
I'll go first. It's
Thanks.
Bruce.
Awesome, Bruce.
So, I'm not quite sure where to go with this, but safety in my community is seriously just personal involvement in everybody's safety. It's, I look out for my neighbors. We don't have a neighborhood watch, signs up everywhere, but I feel almost an obligation to, because we have some elderly people in my community, and I try to help them out. I see their garage door open, I let them know. Small stuff, not huge, but if you stay involved, it's every little bit helps. Just today, I didn't realize it, but the Southside Library was draining all its water tanks, and I saw a river of water going down Jaguar, and I thought a water main had broken. So I'm kind of, I give the public safety or the public works a quick call. And as I'm calling them, a public works truck drove by and talked to them, and they said, yeah, we're draining the water tank, so it's not a broken water main. But what if it wasn't? So just little stuff that around the community, that if you see a problem, you need to report it, let people know so it can be fixed. It's not just law enforcement issues, it's everything. What do I like about the community? I have found that, and I was surprised that I have found people in the city government that actually care. And when I find them, I just cherish that, where they care about the safety and what happens in the community. So and that's pretty much it. I wasn't sure about number 3, so I really didn't have an answer for that. Is that good?
It's
Sunshine?
perfect. Yeah.
All right.
We do what we can, especially in the time that we have. Somebody else.
I'll go. Safety to me, for me and my community, is doing the right thing when nobody's watching. It's recognizing that every single person we meet is a sister, brother, daughter, human being, and really respecting that. I live in a city of faith, and faith for me means that that we see the good in everyone, and that we recognize that each and every one of us are equal. That really matters. And finally, I believe that because we're all work in progress, that we have an opportunity to have a growth mindset and to recognize to be at our best is that we have to see the good in others, but help others by communicating and respecting their points of view. And so that's all for me.
It stands out to me, this growth mindset, and some of the things that, I don't know if it was Bruce or Michael were saying earlier. I think it was Michael, around, what is the role of enforcement, and what should that first stop, that doorway to law enforcement look like, right? Does it have to look traumatic? Does it have to look like trying to find more things? Is it enforcement oriented? And so somehow what you're saying, Mary Louise, about growth mindset, it's connecting for me. Thank you. Who's next? You don't have to share all 3, just anything
I'll
you
go
want.
next.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I have a problem. I wrote down my answer, but I forgot the question.
Oh, that's fine. Just
What
throw
was the
your
first
answer at
question?
us. Give us your any answers. I'll plug them in.
Not living in fear.
Thank you.
For the
Perfect.
first one.
Yeah.
The second one is being respected as an individual. And the last one was where everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed.
I like your style, Michael. Actually, it worked, minus the questions.
Yeah. When you get my age, you forget questions. It just have your answers.
I hope to get your age for that benefit alone. No, just kidding. But let that be one of them. Who's next? Thank you, Michael. Naja, I see you itching over there.
I'm trying to make my mouse unmute.
Okay.
So for me, safety is kind of reiterating Michael's. It's the absence of fear and like a trust in the justice system. If I believe that when the justice system works as it's designed, then we're all safe in it. And the problem is when it's not working for every member in that way. And I have to acknowledge that I'm really lucky to live in a place where I feel safe most of the time. I walk in my neighborhood at night. I get pulled over inevitably for like rolling through a stop sign. And I don't worry about my safety in those moments where the cop is like walking up to my window here where we live. And I just want to also say that my experience isn't everyone's. So just because I experience it that way doesn't mean everyone else does. But I am grateful that in a number of ways I feel safe most of the time. And I struggled with the equity question. I work within several systems of CYFD and these things. And we all, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but there's an acknowledgement that different people are treated differently. So I think it's important to acknowledge there is inequity.
Is that part of safety, the acknowledgement that there is inequity?
I think it, yes, yeah. I mean, the systems I work in, so again, typically CYFD and then sometimes the policing when they need to get involved on behalf of a child's safety. And we do see different parents treated differently and children have different outcomes based on the households, the way their household looks, right? And so if we're talking about safety of a family, then we're talking about equity. We're talking about really just the facts and operations of the facts of that. So I think equity does translate pretty directly to safety.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? I'm very mindful of time, so I'm going to ask you all to pick your best. If they're all your best, it's fine. Just throw them at me quickly.
I'll go. For the first question, one of the things I put was connection and being connected. And knowing, if I or we need help, we know at least one place we can go. For the second one of the things I put is I'm grateful to live in a city where people are not going to accept the status quo. And for the third one, I had a hard time answering that.
Does not accepting the status quo help create more safety?
I think it can. And I feel like there are examples historically, like just even going back the last 50 years or even going back the last year, where people aren't going to accept what solution, quote unquote solution or thing or system that because it doesn't really make change in their lives, or it's not really the best solution, or like they weren't consulted around this specific thing. So I think it can.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
Hello. I'll go ahead, Emily.
Go ahead, Rashawn.
The first one I put being seen and not being invisibilized. And that's mostly just because I know there's this narrative that there's no Black people here. And I just see how dangerous that is. Because we are here and people keep saying that all the time. And I just see like the stereotypes that come from that kind of narrative, and it just seems unsafe. I went to the nature here. I know that I don't think that was the right thing, why I'm grateful to live in this city, but the sky doing all the magic that it does, and clean air. I grew up in LA. It's nice to be able to like breathe deeply. I love that. And yeah, I have a problem with the third one as well. I couldn't answer that either.
Thank you, Rashawn. Who's next?
I'm happy to go with the first couple. I think being safe is really about people not disrespecting their use of power, and systems not disrespecting sort of their power. That there's, well, I guess I could flip it in more positive, but there's respectful use of, and along the lines of Michael and Naja, of just where there isn't fear of each other. There feels like there's always like, there has to be an enemy somehow. And then I am grateful to live in a city that is actually really small, but pretty mighty. Like I feel like there's so many ideas, and because we're small, we can actually accomplish a lot.
Thank you. So because I'm typing, I'm not looking, and it means I won't catch everyone. You'll need to speak up and add your voice. That includes our chairs. So who is next?
I'll go next. This is Marcela.
Thank you.
So again, like everyone else, I answered the first two questions.
Yeah.
For myself. So safety in my community is a positive way of talking about it, having the opportunities and the resources to thrive individually, as families, and as communities. That's health resources, economic resources, community resources, etc. Feeling what others have already said, connected, respected, being seen and heard if we want to be seen and heard, and then the absence of fear and the absence of economic and institutional violence against our communities. So I think that those are key components to community safety. I am really grateful to live in a city that has this deep and strong tradition of communities, particularly of color, for decades and centuries of resisting and surviving institutional and political violence that have been meant to eradicate us and to deeply hurt us. And so that we've not only been able to resist that and survive that, but also come together and organize. We just have such a great organizing tradition in Santa Fe for good, strong community policies that are, despite the problems, this is the positive, that are welcoming, that are loving, that are supportive, that recognize all of us. And so that's that. And yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Can you give me what you were saying about the absence of? I think that was number one, the last part of your statement.
The absence of fear and economic and institutional violence towards families, individuals, and communities.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Who's next?
Sunshine, I'm happy to go. This is Monica.
Well, I'm happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunshine. So what safety means to me, for me, a really big one, and for my community, is there's not the fear of your freedom being taken away. For me, sort of being very intertwined with watching some of the institutional violence that's happened, it's actually made me more fearful of those things and how things can change so quickly, right? How a stop can turn into something very different, right? A traffic stop. So no fear of your freedom being taken away, and really no fear of physical or sexual violence. I would say those are the sort of three big ones for me and my community. And I got kind of personal with the city. And I'll sort of tie it into to what Marcela said, which is I feel grateful that I live in the city where my mother and grandparents live 15 minutes away, that I was raised in the same house that my mother was raised in, and that we have families, and I have that experience where there's deep history and ties, and you know, talking about the resilience and the amazing history, in particular of Brown community here. And I say that as, you know, I am with all of my white privilege and my coyote-ness, right? Which is that some of us are just so mixed, and it's beautiful that we're all here together and we've been thriving together for a long time. But however, we haven't all been thriving. So while I'm grateful that we have that history, I think that trying to have that equity piece is important. And I got kind of aspirational with another one, which is I hope someday that we do live in a city where we don't punish people for their poverty. I would say that we do that, and we do that on a national scale. But I hope that one day we can be a city where we don't punish people for their poverty. And in that vein, I also feel grateful that I live in a city that just used some of the CARES Act funding to buy some hotels to provide some housing for people. And that really made me proud, and made a lot of other people proud. And I get chills just thinking that we did that and that you guys did that, because I certainly didn't do it. And it's amazing.
Beautiful. Thank you. Who's next?
Monica. I'll go. I would say safety to me and my community is when we know and trust the people who are in positions of power and leadership. And I'm grateful for a lot of things to live in the city, but it's similar to what Monica and Marcela were saying about having a deep history of resilience, even though we've gone through various waves of colonization, displacement, and gentrification. And for the equity question, I was challenged by that, but I guess I thought of it as I know that equity exists in my city because as a woman of color that grew up here, I was elected to office. So I feel like there's some equity out there, the fact that I'm able to be in a position of leadership.
Thank you. Who's next?
Am I the last one? Last one standing. I think my answers to the first two questions, I think were similar to everyone else's. The last one I found interesting because I'm not sure if there's equity in my city. I'd like to think that there is, but in reality, I really don't know. I'm kind of siloed in being a Hispanic male and being involved in public safety my whole life. I'm not really sure. I continue to hear stories where there's concern that maybe there's not equity. And I hope to find out more as we go, but that question was interesting and I'm really not sure about it. So
Thanks, Chris. So as we wrap up, I'm just gonna show you all some of what you shared. Community Health and Safety Task Force. So this evening we talked about, we got rooted again in the resolution. We got rooted in why you're each here and you've chosen to lend your talent and time and heart to this process, expertise and lived experience. We talked about community. We talked about safety. Next time we come together, we'll talk about health. This is really all in the direction of getting you all prepared to make informed decisions and have a shared lens as you go into your working groups. And I know that you completed a survey recently about what type of working group you might be willing to participate in and how often, but I really want to keep that on the back burner for now and get you rooted in why you're here, what you were tasked to do, and what all of the incredible dynamics are to this work, so that when you eat it, it's yummy. It might be a very big plate, but we want it to be good and well cooked. As we wrap up, and as I prepare the last slide for tonight, Chris and Renee, will you share why you're here and then pass it back to me before the adjourn, and how you define community?
I'll go. Chris is looking at me through the screen. Well, from a professional point of view, I wanted to co-chair this task force because I would like us to be able to say as a city that all residents, regardless of their ethnic, cultural, social, and economic background, feel safe and confident to call on our police force or fire department for their safety needs, safety and well-being, and that includes like medical and mental health. And that's, I think, very idealistic, but I think we have to chip away at the structures at some point, because I don't want to have to hear from friends of mine tell me the kind of experiences that they've had with the police where they felt like their life was in danger or their life was in danger. And then I, just thinking personally about it, I think that there's times that I've had experiences personally as a woman and a woman of color that haven't been so positive with the police growing up here. But I didn't feel like my life was in danger. And even most recently, I've had situations where there's been intimidation as an elected official by police officers. So all of those have led me to know that I have a privilege still, given that I've felt vulnerable in situations with law enforcement. But I don't want to ever see, like I saw in not too far past, that a friend of my childhood got shot by police. It was the state police, but she was having a mental health crisis, and I don't want to have to see that again. So that's why I've decided to join in and take the jump to be able to be part of the task force. And I think I would define my community as an elected official. Really, the community are all the residents of the city of Santa Fe. As a personal community, I would say the Indo-Hispana, Chicano-Chicana community.
Thanks, Renee. And we're sorry for your loss and the loss of your friend and their family, and the loss of that officer, the dehumanization that comes with taking a life.
Thanks. So I'm here because Renee threatened my life. Let's get that right. So I'm just kidding, trying to bring a little lightness to the end of the meeting here. But Really, I grew up in Santa Fe and really had, growing up, my Young American Football League coaches were all police officers. They were really involved in the community. So really, when I got in some trouble as a young teen, I knew the officers and they kind of coached me through it instead of really, doing what they could have done, taking me to jail and put a police record on me. And I think that was really important, being able to interact with officers as a young adult or as a young man, I guess, and really feeling like, we've lost a lot of that. My father was in the military and he was a firefighter, and I became a firefighter and a paramedic in 1987, spent most of my career as a paramedic firefighter, and then worked my way up and became the fire chief in 2006, and then retired in 2010. So I've worked with fire and police pretty much my whole life. And when all the stuff started happening with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, I wanted to make sure that I always sort of had this feeling like we had a pretty good police department, but this is the opportunity to make sure and to figure out if there's anything that we can do better. And I don't ever think that we've ever done this as a community. I think it was always the status quo. We didn't have anything like George Floyd happening here. So I think we felt like everything was okay, but this is our opportunity really to make sure and to make changes. And, I really don't want to see us get into a situation also, just being honest, where, we change things so drastically that then we leave our police officers in our department in a situation where we can't then effectively respond to school shootings or other large events that might happen that I don't want us to forget about those things. So, before the Black Lives Matter movement, we did have school shootings that were huge. We had domestic terrorism, I think, that, needed some serious response to. So trying to figure out that balance of really what to do better and keeping our officers safe and keeping our community safe, I think is why I'm here. So, but I'm open to change. I'm open to new ideas. Not everything that I think or have dealt with, I know is always the right thing. So I'm continually learning and trying to keep my eyes and ears open to the pulse of the community. So, and really community to me is really, I think I heard earlier, is just watching out for everyone, helping everyone out. I was at Albertsons the other day doing some shopping, and an elderly gentleman had a flat tire, and he was having some trouble changing it. So, me and a couple other people from the store helped him change the tire. So, we all came together and just kind of helped each other kind of get through a difficult situation for him. So, and he was very grateful about it. But that's my idea of what community is, just watching out for each other, helping each other out. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Well, it's 7:32, so we're 2 minutes over. You did a lot of good work tonight. What we have, as I mentioned, is a ton of information on why you're here, how that connects to the resolution. There's a lot of, it's simpatico. I want you all to know that what you said and what's written, there's good overlap. There's an establishment of expertise and passion and personal and professional motivation to do this work. There's this chipping away at the notion of reform and this real sort of like wide open window into creating, imagining, creating. I want us to know that the imagining part is not that we just dream. It's that we visualize to bring into fruition. And there's so much care and consideration. There's a really broad and rooted and diverse and intergenerational, interstate, intercultural definition of community. One of the broadest, most beautiful tapestries of how we define community that I've ever seen occur. So we're going to come back in 2 weeks and we're going to use that fodder for the fire, right? So we're going to use all that you generated tonight, because it's all been written down and it's being tracked, to move towards your guidelines. And then from your guidelines to really move towards your working groups. I'm grateful to have been here. Thanks for going 5 minutes over. Wish I could do more tonight, but we just don't have the time. I'd like to pass it to our chairs to do whatever you need to do, including adjourn. Nice to meet those of you who I didn't already know. Nice to spend time with those of you who I sort of knew. And thank you for allowing me to work with this group as a facilitator. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Sunshine. I appreciate you. It's nice to have you lead us. And, you know, some of this may be repeat, but I actually think this is a lot kind of deeper dive in our own personal reflections and also our path. So I appreciate that. We have on the agenda just matters from the task force. If there was anything people wanted to mention or announcements or anything, I have one thing that I wanted to bring up in terms of our next meeting date, but if there's something else that someone wanted to share, and I don't see any, so the only thing I wanted to mention is our next meeting is scheduled for January 19th, and I have a finance committee meeting that same evening. And the reason why it's on Tuesday, it's normally on Monday, but the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday on Monday pushes all our city meetings back. So I don't want to necessarily change the date because we have this scheduled, but I'm not going to be able to make it then. And I can try to jump on after our finance committee meeting. Chris is not on that committee, so at least one of the chairs will be here, but just wanted to make a note of that. It's a bummer, but. So I think if there's no other announcements, we can adjourn, and thanks for the staff that was stuck out with us and listened to our stories. And that's it. And Jennifer, anything or Chris? We're good? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
I'm still on, Sunshine. You're muted, and I think Joe needs to turn off, or Jennifer, who turns off the live?
Joe's gonna need to do it. Sometimes I have the ability, but I don't this time.
Do we need to text him?
Yeah.
I'll stay here. I'll just mute out till that's done.
Okay.
Okay, I texted.
Cool. My partner is sending me pictures of the food that's waiting for me at home, thankfully.
That's so nice. I can smell bacon
Mm.
from the kitchen.
Good.
breakfast for dinner.
Yes, I like that.
I like that too. I'd like a backwards dinner too, dessert first.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Chris jumped off, didn't want to stick around with us.
I'm here.
Hey, Joe.
Okay, I'll turn it off.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.